Okay, so imagine this, a weapon that leaves no trace, a silent, invisible force that can cause very real, very debilitating brain injuries. For nearly a decade, this has been the terrifying reality for some of America's top spies, diplomats, and soldiers all over the world. Today, we're unraveling the story of Havana Syndrome.
Picture it. You're sitting in your home, maybe your hotel room on a foreign assignment, and suddenly, bam, you're hit by this invisible beam of energy. A painful, focused sound that nobody else can hear. That chilling experience, described by one of the first victims, was the opening shot in a medical mystery that would span the globe.
Now, you and I might call it Havana Syndrome, but inside the US government, they use this very cold, very clinical term, anomalous health incidents, or HIs. And you got to pay attention to the words here, because they tell a story. Anomalous, abnormal, a deviation. It's a deliberately neutral label that doesn't point fingers or even hint at a cause. And that just shows you how deep the uncertainty really runs.
All right, so first up, let's get a handle on the sheer scope of this thing. Who is being hit? Where is this all going down? And how did we get from a few strange cases in Cuba to a full-blown global crisis?
Now, you need to understand, these aren't just random folks. We're talking about America's elite. CIA officers, high-level diplomats, FBI agents, military personnel, and their families, even their kids. I mean, one investigator pointed out that it was the top 5 to 10% of performing officers getting hit. That doesn't sound random, does it? It sounds targeted.
So this thing starts out as a weird cluster of cases at just one embassy in Havana. But then, it just explodes. It spreads like wildfire. Boom! By 2018, it's jumped all the way to China. A year later, it's on US soil, literally happening near the White House. It went from a spy world secret to front-page news in 2021 when it actually delayed the vice president's trip abroad. And now, the numbers are just staggering. Over 1,500 reported cases in nearly 100 countries.
Okay, so the incidents are spreading like crazy, but the one big question just hangs in the air. What in the world is causing this? And this, folks, is where the story takes a sharp turn, pitting two completely different explanations against each other in a really fierce debate. So you've got two camps, right? In one corner, you have the directed energy weapon theory. A hostile power is zapping US officials with some kind of microwave beam. And in the other corner, you've got the idea of mass psychogenic illness. Basically, that in these super high-stress spy communities, the fear of an attack is so powerful, it creates real physical symptoms. So which is it? A high-tech, invisible weapon, or our own minds?
The science behind the weapon idea is actually pretty wild, and it boils down to something called the Frey effect. It's a real, proven thing where a quick pulse of microwave energy causes this teeny-tiny, super-fast heating of your brain tissue. That creates a little shockwave inside your skull that your inner ear picks up as a sound, like a click or a buzz. So you're hearing a sound that's being made inside your own head, which, you have to admit, lines up perfectly with what those first diplomats described.
You can imagine the scientific community was just scrambling to figure this out. First, in 2018, a UPenn study comes out and it looks like they found the smoking gun, physical changes in the victims' brains. Then, in 2020, a huge report from the National Academies says pulsed microwave energy is the most plausible cause. Okay, case closed, right? Wrong. Then comes the bombshell. A massive multi-year NIH study drops in 2024 and finds absolutely nothing. No brain injuries, no biological markers. Our best science gave us completely opposite answers, and just like that, the mystery got deeper.
So with the science basically hitting a brick wall, investigators started following a totally different trail. Not medical evidence, but geopolitical clues. If this is a weapon, who has the tech, and who would be bold enough to use it? Well, a trail of breadcrumbs started to lead in one very specific direction.
And that suspect has a name, Unit 29155. It's a super secretive and frankly notorious sabotage unit inside Russia's military intelligence, the GRU. And look, this isn't just some wild guess. This unit has a track record. Remember the Skripal nerve agent attack in the UK? Yep, that was them. That failed coup in Montenegro? Them again. But here's the part that'll make the hairs on your arms stand up. Investigative reporting found that senior guys in this exact unit got awards and promotions for their work on non-lethal acoustic weapons. The pieces were starting to click into place. And then, the piece of reporting that really seemed to connect all the dots drops. A massive investigation places operatives from Unit 29155 in the exact same cities, at the exact same times,
that US officials were getting hit. So now you've got means, you've got motive, and crucially, you've got them at the scene of the crime.
So for years, this whole thing was just stuck, right? A total stalemate. But then, starting around 2024, a few things happened that were just game changers. Things that threatened to finally blow this whole case wide open.
Okay, 2024. The hunt for answers takes a seriously dramatic turn.
After hunting for years, a secret undercover op finally hits the jackpot. The US government gets its hands on what could be the Holy Grail, an actual physical device, a potential smoking gun.
And they paid a ton for it. We're talking an 8-figure sum, which is more than 10 million bucks. But the real shocker was what they found inside. The device was designed to shoot out pulsed radio frequencies. And get this, it had Russian parts inside.
At the exact same time, this absolutely unbelievable story unfolds. A Norwegian scientist, a total skeptic who thought the weapon theory was nonsense, builds his own microwave device to prove it was harmless. He turns it on and tests it, on himself. And he ends up with symptoms almost identical to Havana Syndrome. In this totally bizarre, ironic twist, he accidentally becomes the first controlled human test subject, suggesting this tech really could be dangerous.
So that's gotta be it, right? Case closed. We've got the suspects, we've got a weapon with Russian parts, we've even got an accidental human trial. But no, not exactly. It's almost unbelievable, but the official story from the US government is still a complete mess.
And this is honestly where the story just gets bizarre. Even with all this evidence, an official intelligence assessment showed the community is totally split. Get this. 5 of the 7 big US intelligence agencies are still on record saying it is very unlikely a foreign adversary is doing this. 5. Only 2 agencies think it's either likely or an even chance. This massive split at the highest levels is why this mystery is officially still unsolved.
Okay, so with all this chaos and conflicting information, why does any of this matter? Why should you care? Well, because the stakes here are incredibly high.
Look, this isn't some abstract spy game. This is about the real lives of hundreds of public servants and their families who feel completely left behind. It's about a massive crisis of trust within the US government, and it points to something really scary: the potential arrival of a brand new kind of warfare, one that's completely deniable and untraceable. It all forces us to ask a really tough question. How do you prove an injury that leaves no scar?
So what are we really looking at here? Is this the dawn of a new, terrifying era of invisible warfare? Or is it just a tragic, decade-long medical mystery that we may never, ever truly solve? For now, the file remains open.